Hello and welcome back to the Joyful Soul Creates. Charlotte here with my second Mermazing Monday project. This time I decided I would do some wreath stamping. I was kind of thinking about synchronized swimming with this card. I'm not quite sure why that came to mind, but I thought that would be a fun thing to do. So I have my Gina K wreath builder. This is the one with the 4-inch opening. I've positioned that into my MISTI and I have a panel of 4-inch card sitting inside that. And then I'm using one of the mermaids from Lawn Fawn's Mermaid for You and stamping that in a wreath with MFT Black Licorice Hybrid ink. The mermaids are a little too big to not overlap with each other with this wreath, so I did have to create masks and just mask off basically every other mermaid so that I wouldn't have any overlapping to keep the design nice and tidy. And I just reused the same 2 masks and moved them as I needed to. Wreath stamping is really easy with this stencil. It's just a case of getting your stamp in place and then rotating the panel to the next corner each time you want to stamp down a new image. Once I had all the mermaids stamped out, I got started on the colouring. I'm using my Spectrum Noir Illustrator markers. I did colour a couple off camera just to get an idea of what I wanted to do, and I was going to do some blue and then 2 different shades of purple, but they didn't really divide well because of it being 8 images. If it was 9 it would be fine because I would have had 3 of each, but with 8 images it didn't work as well. I wanted to keep the blue for the colour palette I'm working with. This is for the current Lawn Fanatics challenge, which is colour palette and has that blue in it. But I decided I would just pull in the blue for my background, so I coloured in those mermaids that I had already done blue with the lighter purple combination so that I would have a more even distribution of the colours. I really don't have a good selection of purple, so I really felt there wasn't enough variation between the shade and highlight areas on these mermaids. I do kind of manage to fix that later when I go back in and add a bit of texture and sparkle, but I was much happier, for example, with the colouring I got on the mermaid I made for last week's Mermazing Monday, or also the ones for the Under the Sea slimline card I did before that. If I would have had more time, I probably would have done a different skin colour for each of the mermaids, but as it was, I decided just to use 2 colours and they're quite similar to each other, so I used golden browns. I used the darkest one on the mermaids with the light purple, and then I used the lightest one as the mid-tone for them and the darkest tone for the other mermaids, and then kept working down like that, so they do have almost the same skin colours but a slight variation between the 2 different styles of mermaids, I guess. As well as the purples and the blue, the colour palette for the challenge has orange and yellow, and I thought I would bring these in as their hair colours. So here again I'm going to be alternating, so the light purple mermaids have the orange hair and the dark purple mermaids have the yellow hair. And I showed how to do 2 of those and then finish the rest off camera just to save some time. Then I thought I would bring in the blue for my background. Normally I would probably prefer to use blue greens for water, but as I said, the blue is in the colour palette, so that's what I went for. I started with a darkest blue in the middle, and then I'm just working out from there, getting gradually lighter and lighter with each of the different colours. These are the true blues from the Illustrator markers. And my TB2 and TB1 are a bit on the dry side. I have found that if my markers are running a bit dry, sometimes it helps to switch which end I'm using. So here I started out with the bullet nib of the TB2 and was struggling a bit because it's quite dry. So I switched to the brush nib, and that did seem to have a bit more colour in it, which made it just a little bit easier to blend. Definitely, if you have the option, it is much better to use nice juicy pens for doing backgrounds because you will get that blend much better. But I didn't think it mattered too much here anyway because it's water, there is some kind of texture in a sense to it, so it didn't need to be completely smooth. My Illustrator markers that I have are the older version of the Illustrator markers, and the nibs are not great, and you can see this TB1, my nib is utterly destroyed. It's really separated and just not very good at all. So it does not work in the slightest for detail work, but for this kind of area it works well enough. I'm still trying to decide whether it's worth replacing all my Illustrator markers with the newer ones, or just getting new nibs and refills for them, or maybe even upgrading to Copics, but I don't have the money for that, so yeah, I haven't quite decided what I'm going to do yet. Once I'd finished all my colouring, I also cut another panel of white card to basically lengthen my panel so it will fill my card base with a slight reveal around the edge. And then I brought in another little piece which I then covered with washi tape to hide the divide between the two pieces. I used the lightest blue to colour in that bottom piece so it makes the background look continuous. And then I'm going to add some detail to my mermaids. I want to give some texture to their scales, and again this worked pretty well on the previous images I'd done, but because these purples don't have much differentiation between them, I struggled with it a bit. But the basic idea is that you're stippling in the colour. And then I also bought in some white gel pens of varying sizes and did the same kind of stippling in of the colour with those, which again is adding texture and the impression that these are shimmery or shiny. As well as the white gel pens, I did use a glitter gel pen, which again gives that impression of sparkle on the mermaids, and I just thought added a bit of extra interest to them. Next I decided to add a sentiment. This is also from Mermaid for You, and I thought I would stamp it directly on the washi tape, which I like the positioning of, but I completely forgot that my Versafine wasn't going to dry nicely on that because it's a slightly slick surface. So I was thinking that's fine, I'll just add embossing powder and emboss it, except because I hadn't planned ahead, I hadn't treated with anti-static powder, so the embossing powder was just sticking to the whole piece of washi, and as a result I thought it would be easiest just to emboss the whole washi strip, so I put embossing powder on the whole thing and brushed off the excess with my paintbrush. This does kind of work because it makes the washi strip look sort of wet from the shine of the embossing powder, which works well for a sea scene, but also I think maybe I should have put another layer over it because it's a bit pitted because it's a fine detail clear powder. But once I had that done, all that was left to do was adhere the panel to the card base, and that will complete my Mermaid Wreath Synchronized Swimming inspired card for Mermazing Monday. I hope you will come back and join for next Monday as well, and if you click on the hashtag above my title or in the description box, you can see more mermaid inspiration from other people who are taking part. There are also a couple of videos on screen if you'd like to see more of my videos straight away, and click the subscribe button to make sure you don't miss anything I upload in future. Otherwise, I will thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again in the next video. Bye!